Well, hello and welcome back to the Family Life Podcast. We are here to help encourage and equip you to lead your families confidently. And I'm super excited for today because I have really exciting special guests with me. I would love for you guys just to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan, and this is my wife, Adrian. And
I'm Adrian.
Sorry. We do lots of different things. One of the things we do is help lead Palm Valley Church. So that's probably where people would know us probably the most.
You probably recognize their faces, at least Ryan's, because you might see it every single weekend on the stage or in the office. But since this is our Family Life Podcast, I would love to hear a little bit about your families growing up and how you guys met and how you guys became a family.
Yeah, so I'll jump in first because today's a special day. It's Valentine's Day.
Yes, it is.
And it's actually our 29th anniversary of
Date-iversary,
like we
steady going out.
So I was 17 years old and we started dating officially on Valentine's Day. I was really smart even back then. I'm like, pick a date that you'll remember. So here 29 years later, we're married. We're going to celebrate 25 years this year.
Yep,
And
25 years.
Yeah, we met. I was in high school. Adrian had just graduated from high school, but we both went to Tolleson. And there's lots of different versions of that story, but
Lots of different versions. My family actually, that's how we met. I'll talk about my family. I come from a family with two siblings. I have a brother who's younger than me, and I have an older sister. My dad lives here locally, but my mom lives in New Mexico. My parents are divorced. So growing up, I think my parents divorced when I was like 7. And so it was kind of a little bit tumultuous for a period of time in my childhood. So we moved around a lot and all that. So that kind of background affects kind of how I make decisions now. But that's kind of our story.
Yeah, and I kind of same thing with me. My parents got divorced when I was 10, so we both came from divorced families. So having a solid marriage, having a solid family was super important to us.
Yeah.
And even though we weren't talking about that when we first started dating, but it was just in both of us to make sure that we had.
And I actually think we both have some experience with blended families as well. He's got some step siblings. He's got 2 stepbrothers. I have a stepsister and a stepbrother that I love dearly.
I love my stepbrothers too. So. Tony, Phillip, shout out to you guys.
Just a great dynamic that we have now with our blended family. But Ryan's mom never remarried, so he's got that single mom kind of vibe and a remarried parent. So, and my mom remarried but divorced again, but my dad is remarried. So, kind of a lot.
I think to sum it all up, complicated.
Complicated.
It wasn't like some perfect childhood growing up. Like we both came from lots of messiness, lots of love, but a messy situation.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's awesome. I think something that probably a lot of people can relate to is you guys have similar but yet very different upbringings. Yeah. Like a lot of times when you come into a marriage, you're coming from 2 different backgrounds. My parents are still married, and my husband comes from a divorced family as well, both remarried. And so we came together also with different backgrounds. I would love to hear a little bit about how your childhood and your personalities even have shaped maybe the perception you had about how a marriage would look and how a family would look. And was that challenged at all when you came together?
Yeah. You want to go first?
Let me think. You go first, and then I can think about how I'm going to organize that in my thoughts.
So for me, some of the main things was I'm never going to get divorced. That was in my mind. I just went through that pain. I saw my parents go through the pain. It was just painful for everyone, and just made that commitment early on. Not even knowing what it would take to do that. That was a very important thing. Making my marriage a priority, making family a priority. One of the things my mom modeled all the time was just family did. We always sat down for dinner. That was our time together, and Adrian became part of that. So when we started dating at such a young age, Adrian would come over for dinner every night.
I immediately gained 30 pounds after I started dating him. I'm not even joking. My freshman year. It's always a dangerous year anyway, that freshman year of college. But man, 30 pounds, because his mom was like Betty Crocker. Man, she could cook like nobody's business. So.
Yeah. So that was one of those things that I saw modeled grow up, and we just have continued to do. Family dinners are a big deal for us. It's harder now with the kids going different directions, but we try.
I have a similar kind of expression of what came out of my childhood. I knew that I never wanted to be divorced. I wanted to do things differently than I had experienced, because I remember how traumatic that divorce. It's just hard for kids. It's hard for kids to go through divorce, and I just always felt like, man, I never wanted to make anyone experience that or to participate in that. So I knew that when I found Mr. Right, he was going to be my Mr. Right forever. And when I met Ryan, he had the same kind of feelings about marriage. And so I was very excited about that. And I also felt like I wanted an incredible amount of stability for our family, because I remember just moving when you move back and forth between parents, and then maybe you move from house to house to house. I went to more than 10 schools growing up. More than 10 schools before high school. And that's a lot of schools. And I was a good student, but to be a good student and move that many schools is really hard to do. So I felt like, okay, I was just kind of making little notes in my mind. I'm like, man, I want to give my kids stability, and I don't want them to have to adjust and adapt constantly to a new environment and a new learning environment. So that was a big thing for me. And just the security kids feel when their parents are stable like that. I wanted my kids to feel that. So I knew we were going to be married forever and we were going to be very stable, and we weren't going to move our kids around all over the place.
And I think everyone has those things too when they go into marriage. Like, no one goes into marriage thinking like, oh, we're going to get divorced, or, oh, let's have a really chaotic, like, move around all the time. Like, life happens, things happen, but it's just those commitments. Like, we do really hard things to make sure that we don't fall down those
To be
pathways.
fair, there's been some chaotic things in our marriage that have happened just with life, because life happens. But we've always been like, okay, how can we make this very chaotic circumstance less chaotic for our family? And so we've really been intentional about doing that, because I mean, life is chaos. Yeah. And sometimes divorce happens, right? But for us, we're like, man, if we can do anything to prevent these things from happening, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think a huge thing that is a value, and I hear this a lot of, to lead a healthy family, you have to have a healthy marriage. And I think a lot of the temptation is to focus on the kids. As soon as you have kids, all your attention goes to them, and then you neglect spending time with your spouse, which I think is so pivotal in staying married, is to focus on your spouse. And so I would love to hear, how do you guys manage like staying united as a couple, even when kids happen, especially when they become teenagers and you might disagree on certain ways to lead your families.
No, we never disagree.
Never.
We have like the same mind on everything.
How do you lead united and still love each other?
I think the first thing is that the most important thing in our life is the same for both of us, our relationship with Christ. Mm-hmm. So like that's foundational. Like the most important thing to me, the most important thing to Adrian is our relationship with Christ. That solves a ton of issues. Like that makes so much stuff come into alignment. After that comes our marriage. You know, our marriage before our kids, and making sure that we have quality time. And you know what? It's not always quantity time when your kids are young and running around. Like, you would love for it to be a lot of time, but sometimes you just make the most of what you have. And then comes our kids and family after that.
Mm-hmm. I think this is really important for me as a mom, because as a mom, the tendency is, okay, when you have your babies, you are immediately in love. You're in love, and you just want to protect them and nurture them and love them, and they just become the most important thing. But in a marriage, I came to realize that the most important thing is Jesus, one, but our marriage would be keeping that healthy and strong is the number one thing that's going to keep my kids protected and strong and with a high self-confidence. And that's what we have to do for our kids. We have to keep our union strong, because that's going to protect our children. And as a mom, we can start to kind of fall into this, like, I don't have time for you because I have to take care of the kids. The kids need me. The kids need me. What the kids need is a strong set of parents that are going to provide them an environment where they can flourish. Your kids are going to thrive in that environment. Because, you know, growing up, we told you we're both from these divorced homes. And I know that I never felt less safe or secure than when my parents were getting a divorce. I felt like the world was spiraling out of control. Now, my kids, if we're strong and our relationship is strong, maybe they don't get that extra trip to the mall because I said no because I'm going on a date night with dad. But you know what? They're going to have really strong parents that love each other and provide a really safe environment so they'll never experience that spiral that I remember as a kid.
Yeah. And let's be honest, kids are selfish. Like, they just are. Like it's never, no matter how much you give them time, all that stuff, they always want more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable saying that because I wanted that when I was like, it's
Yeah.
like when you're kids, like that's it. Like you always want more and you can never fulfill all of that, you know, all their desires. So we have to draw boundaries and, you know, doing date nights and
Yeah. And it's got to be intentional because sometimes you
yeah.
are tired. Man, you've been running kids all week or you've been working long hours or, you know, I'm just tired. I mean, sometimes you got to say, you know, you make time for what's important. And if your marriage is important, you make time for it.
yeah.
And so you can say my marriage is important, but if we didn't make time for it, our actions aren't matching up with what we're saying. And so we make time for it.
And when we say date night, it's like,
It doesn't have
it's
to
probably
be big.
conversation night is the best thing.
Yeah.
So it's not so much, you know, just watching a movie or watching TV because then we're not talking. So doing something, even if it's going to the backyard and sit by, we've got like a little
The other
fire
night
pit.
we went out and we walked around the block a couple times just because there was no devices out. This is the interesting thing
Yeah.
that we have to deal with now is that we have these pocket computers that can show us.
We're sitting in the living room, like sending each other videos. And it's like, that's probably not the best.
And so we're like, do you want to go for a walk? So we
Yeah.
went for, you know, just to get us away from the vices that kind of suck you in to focus on each other and talk about the things that matter to us. You know,
And we've also developed a new hobby. We've started fishing together.
Fishing.
We started fishing.
it
We
does
are
have technology involved, but
so we
Interesting.
got an Oculus a couple years ago for the family.
Okay.
But we downloaded
family.
this
For the family.
this
two of 'em, yeah.
amazing VR fishing game. It's legit. Like
it is.
we go all over the world.
We went
And
to Hawaii last
We were in
night.
Hawaii last night fishing.
Oh,
Adrian
okay.
caught a shark.
I caught two sharks.
I caught
actually.
a soulfish, and what were those ones? The stripe. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I thought you meant you actually went to a pond.
No,
and were
it does
going-
feel
But we are
very-
planning on doing that at some point. But for now, we're just.
I would love to video that and show that.
Maybe
to
you can come
everyone.
take a picture of it and you can throw it up here on the
I
podcast.
definitely
Yeah.
will.
So, but yeah, we just sit there,
Definitely
but we're literally like sitting on a beach together. And we're like looking at each other. We're talking. We're fishing. We're in the Grand Tetons. Like it's VR, so it's like 360. Anyways, it's silly, right?
Technology
But
these
It's silly,
days.
but so fun. Like we laugh and it's
Yeah.
fun, you know. Like and you know, games. It's like you wouldn't think because I don't think we've ever played a game like that ever. Like we're
it's
not
more
big
relaxed. We
game-
were into Ghostbusters for a while. Like that was a good VR game, but like it was a
This
little.
is
It was a little too
yeah,
intense. Like we were having great conversations. Fishing,
fishing.
it's a little more speed.
I've never done anything on VR other than the roller coasters.
Okay, well I'll have to
You and
bring it to
Zach
the
can
office.
come
We'll have
over.
a,
We'll go
Yeah.
out for a date. You can use our VR and try out the fishing game.
yeah, you can watch our kids and play VR.
There we go. I was
Our
waiting
kids
for
don't
that
need to be
line.
watched, so yeah, you'll be okay in the VR.
They'd probably need to
realm.
teach us how to play the VR
Yeah,
for being
yeah.
so
They'll help
honest.
you guys. They'll help you guys.
Definitely. Well, that's so funny. Well, I would love to touch on that in a little bit, but something that keeps coming up that I think would be really awesome to talk through is we've talked a lot about how you both come from divorced families and how there's a lot of temptation a lot of times when things get tough, that's the easy way out. And there might be people listening that are thinking about that in their marriage right now, that they're struggling and divorce is on the table. And so I would love to hear just the advice that you would give to anyone who's listening that they feel like that's the only right answer. How can they come back from that? How can they really lean into their marriage to find a different way for their families?
Yeah, I think so. This we can't cover all the different
Right.
scenarios that are there. I mean, there are some reasons for divorce, infidelity, abandonment. I mean, we're not going to go into all of that, but I think what we wanted to, when things get hard or when feelings change, I think that's the biggest thing. We talked about a couple weekends ago in church, this idea that God wants me to be happy, and if for some reason we're not happy anymore, then the way we fix that is find someone else that'll make me happy. And that's just simply a lie. Like that is not true. There's not another person that's going to make me more happy. It's just a wave of destruction, all that stuff involved there. And the vast majority of our marriage has been like, we're in love, but we also like each other. And that's that's a key to it. Like we enjoy hanging out. We like playing silly games and, that type of stuff. We like being together. But in those seasons where it's difficult, when there is tension, it's the commitment part. Like, no, love is a commitment. It's a choice. Like, we are going to work through this. It's not an option for us to abandon or move away.
We're not leaving this table. We're going to sit down at this table and work it out. Now, it's interesting. You had talked about a little bit when feelings change, and this is something that can happen when you get into a career, or if you have kids that maybe you haven't been real good about maintaining that connection time through date nights or whatever it is, or maybe there's some circumstances that came up. The best advice I can give is to just realize what you've built together, a foundation. If you have children especially, this is a really important thing. It's worth it to give it a shot for those kids. And so to start over as far as the connection bit, maybe the feelings have changed. Go make some new feelings. Let's start dating that person again and discover this relationship again and be intentional about it, because when feelings aren't what you remember, when you look backwards at the way things used to be too much, things are probably never going to be the way they used to be, because the situation's different. Now you have children. Now you have this. Now you have these stresses in life. You're not single, carefree anymore. So you are starting from a place that's a little bit different. So rediscover what that looks like for you and start dating again. Start to find some commonalities and things that you can do together to reestablish that connection, because it is worth it. Because I know there's a lie out there that says that, like, hey, if we could just get out of this crazy marriage that we're in, it will be happy. And
the kids will be better off.
The kids will be better off.
Yeah.
Well, can I tell you what, coming from a divorced family, and like I said, there's some situations that we're not speaking to here, but the vast majority of situations, the kids struggle because in a divorce situation, the kids are the ones that have to share time. They're the ones that have an uprooted life that we have to maintain in your joint parenting. They're the ones that have the
Christmas is never the same.
It's never the
Birthdays
same,
are
even
never
as an
the same.
adult.
Like, even as an adult, like you're
even as an
bouncing
adult.
around and all this stuff.
So it is worth the effort. So that's what I would say. Just start from a place of, man, things are not good now, but we're going to come to the table. We're not going to leave. And if you take divorce off the table, like that's not an option, that's actually a really good first start. And just say you can build from there. But
yeah, I think that's super awesome. I can say, for my marriage with Zach, and he comes from a divorced family, and there were a lot of things that he had to work through with the pain of divorced parents. And something that we've tried really hard to in our marriages, anytime we disagree, we argue, or things come up, we always are very quick to say, okay, we are not the problem. The problem is something else, because it's very quick to attack the other person. And so we've tried. At first I was like, what is that even going to do? And then now the more that we talk about it, I'm like, oh, I guess that makes sense. It's not a we problem. There's that, and we are a team together. But it's all about keeping that connection and keeping together. And if you can't tell by my outfit, it is Valentine's Day. I want it to be very themed out.
So cute.
I love pink. So any excuse I can get to wear pink, I think it's great.
you are rocking that pink dress. I'm telling you, it looks great.
Fun. So fun. I guess you
I
guys
didn't-
missed the pink.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, that's what 29 years.
But you guys
will do
match
for
kind of.
you know.
You
Every
kind of
day.
look
Every
the
day's
same.
Valentine's Day at our house.
Every day. But do you guys have any fun, exciting Valentine's Day plans?
No.
Well, I will tell you something.
I mean,
cute.
yeah, we're rolling it out.
It is
It's a
fun.
secret.
Valentine's Day actually was Ryan's mom's favorite holiday.
Yeah.
She used to bake these cute little heart-shaped sugar cookies and decorate them, and it was just, she loved it. And she'd do big things for her kids, because she was a single mom. But so tonight we're probably going to do a
We're doing a
family
special
dinner.
It's funny, like for us, it was like a family holiday. It was like celebrating the
Yeah.
love of
Okay.
family.
That's cool.
We got to go out of town, not out of town, but in town, to like a
A
little
little
celebration
earlier this month, yeah.
earlier this month. So
Cool.
And honestly, when you keep a regular date night,
Yeah.
Valentine's Day is like,
nothing wrong with celebrating. We
there's
just-
nothing wrong with celebrating it. Like, maybe that's a reminder, but we spend quality time together quite a lot, so we don't need a special day to go on a date. So
But you did give me
that's
some.
more expensive, by the way, than
Yeah.
normal.
I gave you a card and some flowers.
Yeah, and I gave you a bucket of Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah.
Some people would be so thrilled for just a giant bucket of Reese's.
It is. It's
giant.
huge. It's giant.
It's
So,
like, those buckets that they have chlorine tabs in them.
Yeah.
They have or laundry detergent.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
one of those buckets, but with Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah.
It's brilliant marketing.
Some people are listening to this. They're going to go to the store right now and go buy
Yeah, it's on
some
sale
Reese's.
at Fry's for $15.99, you guys. So, I mean, come on.
Hopefully it still is when this comes out. But that's how I keep hearing the consistent date night. Like every single, do you guys do weekly, bi-weekly? How often do you guys do a date night?
yeah. So the goal is weekly. Life's crazy, right?
Yep.
So things come up. It isn't the same night, each semester because kids' schedules change, stuff like that. But we try to be really consistent on that. And it's funny because we've done different seasons. Like I have Friday off and the kids are at school. So we thought, oh, let's do a date morning. And it doesn't feel the same. Like we still spend the morning
Yeah,
together, but it's
yeah.
like
It's
we end up
different.
running errands and stuff like that. Like, oh, this isn't very, like
Well,
we're
and
hanging
everybody's
out.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
different. I feel like. But you know what else we do is like every night after the kids kind of have migrated upstairs, we will go to bed at the same time.
Hey, what?
No.
Don't get,
Hey.
just kidding.
See,
is a parent podcast.
different between a man and a woman, the way we're thinking. And we'll sit there and talk about just like our day, like
Yeah.
have this connection time. Keep it clean, Ryan. Keep it clean. Come on.
Hey, healthy marriage.
That is the censored part of
Yeah, sorry.
the podcast.
Hey, this is for parents, so it's okay. Hopefully children won't listen to this. And hopefully your children won't listen to this.
You know what?
I would love to hear what is like your guys' maybe most fun date you've ever done or most like that you felt the most connected afterwards.
The most fun? I feel like we connect on most of our dates because we're like, our kids aren't here. Yay, this is so exciting.
I think whenever I plan something ahead, like the more I plan for it, like the more it means to Adrian. Like it's
Ryan
that-
is an
that preparation.
amazing date planner. I mean, I just
Well.
gotta say, he will put
My
things,
book will be coming out later this year. 50 creative date
some
ideas.
people
So-
probably
he'll
really
put
like that.
thing like a progressive date where there'll be like envelopes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on each envelope will be the next destination and what we're gonna do, and or he'll have like yes days, stuff like that. But those are great dates and I love them. But sometimes when we do a little day trip, like we just go out of town for a little bit, like I think maybe
Yeah.
a couple
And
months ago,
just,
we
I
went to
mean,
Jerome just for the
yeah.
day. It's just
The
we
point
go
is
and
just
see
the plan.
something.
Like
yeah,
you
just
can go out and
anything
grab
fun.
dinner, but if there's just some intentionality, it just shows that I care, that
Yeah.
like we're planning for this. I did this one. I'm going to tell our funniest one.
Okay, tell me. Go.
So when
I
I
can't
did
remember which
the
one you're talking
Spanish
about.
theme, I did a Spanish
Oh, this
theme.
is a good one. This was my 30th birthday, actually.
Yeah. So I planned like Spanish theme. I don't know why I came up with that theme, but so we found like a Spanish, it was a Cuban restaurant. It was
Yeah.
a Cuban restaurant. So we went there, tried Cuban food, and then we went to salsa dancing afterwards. And it was like salsa dancing instruction. We get there.
Okay,
I
can
don't
I
like
just
to
say, Ryan hates dancing, like literally hates it. He barely wants to dance with me.
Which
but
is
he
weird
will.
because I'm really good at it.
He
but-
is really good.
Just kidding.
Oh,
He's not good at it, but go ahead, keep going.
So we went to this dance instruction place and we get there and there's like, we show up as a couple, but there are 40 single ladies there that are waiting to do dance instruction. So we get there and there's some guys there as well. So we kind of partner up. Obviously we partner up and they teach us the first dance move. We do it. And then all of a sudden they're like rotate and we're like, what? And like the line just shifts and Adrian goes that way and I go that way. And we never see each other again the rest
For
of the
the
night.
rest of the
like
time.
we're dancing with
Yeah.
other people.
And this is date night, so I've worn heels, by the way.
Which Adrian Hill's 6'3" at least, which is awesome. Like Adrian's
and
tall, but
there's some short men in this room, and one of them was a 12-year-old that came with his mom. Like it is really not good.
oh, that's so funny.
so they're trying to dance with Adrian. They're like their arms. It was hilarious.
It was terrible.
But it was horrible. It was funny. We laugh about it now, but it was. Not.
It was funny at dinner because we went to the Cuban restaurant after.
Oh, yeah, we
dancing,
did. It was afterwards.
and it
That's so
was
fun.
funny.
Yeah.
And this couple came in late, and they were off to the side just dancing
Yeah,
together
they
the
just
whole
stayed together
night.
the whole time. Like,
And
we
I'm
didn't even know that
what
was an
in the
option.
world? I'm like, these women needed to bring their own date.
Yeah.
they were all there.
They were
wanted it.
looking for a date at, at the
And,
dance,
you know,
probably.
he's a handsome guy, so I'm sure they're all like, ooh. I'm like, nope, he came with me, ladies. So happy birthday to me.
Yeah.
That's
That
awesome.
was- that's
But
so
he got
funny.
so many points for planning the date. And
Yeah.
here's the thing with women, man, it doesn't even matter where you're going, but if you plan it, because I know guys are like, I want to make sure she has fun. So they're like, hey, what do you want to do? Women, I'll tell you what they want to do, not have to tell you what they want to do. They just want you to plan it.
That's the
Just
secret right
plan
there,
it.
right?
That is the best advice I can give.
Amen.
Plan something fun. She's going to have a good time.
And it doesn't have to be expensive. Like that's not even
No.
the point. Just
There has to be effort shown. And if there's effort shown, you are going to nail it.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think just the intentionality, like Zach and I have gone on walks to go get hot chocolate from Dutch Bros because we live just right around the corner from one. But what was special was he said, all right, let's go. Like, and he had it fully planned out. I think that's a huge thing that women love, to just feel intentional time. So fellas,
yeah.
come find Ryan in the lobby if you want some advice.
And you
He'll
know
help
what?
them out.
Part of it was when you have little kids, how do you do this? Hiring a babysitter every time. Maybe you don't have family that's close by. When Eric at first we would wait till like 8:30 at night, kids would go to bed, and we just go to the backyard. And we would
Yeah.
just like have a date at the Piata Furniture Set. It was like outside of the house. And then when they got a little bit older, we'd go to the coffee shop down the street, and like they could call us. And then we just slowly ventured further and further over time. And now we ditch them.
I think that sometimes people think date night has to be expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No.
Some of my favorite date nights, like we'll blow up an air mattress and we'll watch a movie in the living room. Like it's just the fun, a little bit out of normal routine, but still it can be so easy.
It can't be expensive because if it's expensive, you're not going to do it every week.
Yep.
That's
So-
right. That's right.
It has to be.
I think that's a huge
Has to be
thing.
affordable. Yep.
All right, I want to close this out with a little bit of fun. As we're talking about, parenting, there might be disagreements in how you do things or lead things, but you want to show this united front. I'm going to list off a couple different things. I would love to hear how you guys have handled that, or maybe any advice to the people listening when they see these things come and happen. So when you guys started getting older kids and they wanted to go hang out late and have their friends, how did you guys handle the curfew for your kids? What time they should be home?
Yeah. You know what? That's funny because
This came up this last year, actually, a little bit with our youngest boy.
let's be honest, our older two kids didn't really stay out like that. There
Yeah.
was not a desire.
It depends on the kid.
Yeah.
And that seems weird because
We didn't even
people
have to
are
talk
like, we have
about it with
this
Eric
rule.
and Isaac
Yeah.
because they were always home. If
But
Eric
it
had a choice,
matters
he'd be
who
home by
they're
8 o'clock
with.
every night.
It matters who they're with, really. That matters. And we look at legally what's a good curfew and then what maturity wise they can
Yeah.
handle. And we have a conversation about it. And then we have a conversation with our kids about it. And we're really an open family with like what we're talking about. So I tell them why and that it's not a debate. That's what we're going to do. And Ryan we've always agreed on it before. And so if he needs to have the conversation, but let's be honest, I'm the late night person. So I'm usually the one that stays up and waits for them to get home.
I'm in
So-
sleep by 9 o'clock, so Aiden's waking
That's
up.
funny.
But yeah, it depends on the circumstance, the age of the kid. So and whether it's midweek, weekend,
Yeah.
it's hey, can I go out tonight? All right, yeah, you have to be home by this time.
Yeah.
So
It matters what they're doing, which kid it is, and who they're with. Those are the three things that we really pay attention to.
yeah,
That's awesome.
like if it's Grace, she's never allowed to leave the house, so that's fine.
That's so funny. I was the same way. Both my two, honestly, all three of my older siblings never went out. Like they were home all the time. So when I was in high school, I think my mom was like, "Wait, I never had to do this before. What am I?" She was so thrown off having to create a curfew now.
Yeah.
A big one I feel like we talk a lot about in students too is what about when your kids wanted to start dating? Did you guys have a boundary rule set beforehand, or how did you guys handle that situation?
Once again, so we've got like two sets of kids. I feel like, we never put like rules around dating. Like we put rules around being alone with people of the opposite sex, going out and doing different things. Like that's kind of the boundary around it. But like, oh, you can't date until you're 16. What does that mean? Like for a 14-year-old,
Yeah.
it just means like, oh no, like we're friends. We talk exclusively, all of that type of stuff. That's fine. They're not going anywhere. So 8. I don't know. That should. Yeah. Anyways, we've gone through different circumstances.
And it is funny because they're all different and then by personality. But we have talked about it. We don't have a hard and fast rule. But I would have never thought that a 14-year-old would be dating, but when we say dating, it's just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
they're
like
not they're not driving, going anywhere.
Right. But we also have been really open early with our kids. Even in middle school, we started leaning into those sex talks right away. I know that's hard for parents sometimes to sit down and do. But if you normalize that talk with your kids, having that sex talk doesn't, of course, they're always weirded out by it. They don't want to talk about it, but it becomes normal to talk about it before it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
Then when it needs to be talked about, they're more likely to talk to you and ask questions. And so I feel like I've always had this, it always tends to be like on the way home from school or on the way to school, I'll just bring it up and I'll talk about it. So they're overly prepared for the conversations that need to come up. And it's age appropriate always when you do sex talks with kids. But if you make it a big awkward conversation all the time, then it's always a big awkward thing to talk about. If it's not a big and awkward thing to talk about and you can talk about it in an appropriate way, they're okay with it. They'll ask the questions they need to ask. And it is funny because based on personality, they respond differently to the conversation.
Eric. So Adrian, and it was just kind of, it just came up, right? They're going somewhere.
Take the opportunity whenever it presents itself.
Yeah. So talk to Eric and he's like, you have any questions? He's like, yeah, I got a lot of questions.
I'm like, all right, let's get into it.
That's so funny.
I have a lot of questions. But like just appropriate times, like if something comes up in society or something, you know what I mean, culturally, if it's a good segue into that conversation, do it. Like, don't wait for like, okay, guys, sit down. I made some cookies. We're going to have the talk about the sex. No, it doesn't have to be weird like that. Don't make it weird. Just say, hey, what do you think about that? It's like, and you just kind of segue into a conversation. And if you do it kind of like when you're not face to face, like confrontational conversation, but when you're doing something else or you're driving somewhere, cars are great for really hard conversations, by the way, because they are in the car and they're not going anywhere. And you're not facing them. It's not as confrontational. It's side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And they'll sit there and you're not staring into their soul through their eyes. You're having a conversation, you're listening, and it's just a less intimidating conversation environment.
Yeah. How did you guys talk through, and any advice for how to spend money like against each other? Some people might be more of a spender, more of a saver.
We just have a budget. So, I mean, a budget that we work on together. We've got a little app.
Constantly working on it.
Yeah, and it's every 2 weeks. Like, we come back, have a budget meeting, conversation. I feel like we've gotten better at over the years just because we talk about it so much, but we still have to make decisions together. It's not like you figure this out and you're on autopilot because circumstances are already changing. And then the budgeting tool that we have this little app that allows us both to see where money's going, and it's just a communication tool. Like it doesn't solve it, like you still have to talk, but it's a tool that helps us a bit.
And here's and I know there's a lot of debate on where your finances are. Our finances are combined. There's no his and hers. There's our finances always. And I think for any successful marriage that is going to stand the test of time, there needs to be no hidden money. Yeah. There's just money.
We're not roommates. It's not like I'm going to pay this bill, you pay that bill. Like that's not a way to build a solid marriage.
Our money. And he knows every time I maybe overindulge on Amazon because he sees it. And I know when, I know when he buys me presents because no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have anything hidden on our finances. We have access to all of it.
Yeah.
I see all the Amazon stuff. I think the Amazon guy really knows our family very well.
Amazon gets you.
I think Amazon knows everybody's family.
Yeah.
Probably pretty well.
I mean, at the end of the day, we order stuff there that we normally would have gotten this store before. So.
But I mean, we do talk about finances a lot, and we cover things in grace a lot. And here's the rule that we kind of an unwritten rule that if we're going to spend more than $100 on something or $50, $100, we call the other person and say, hey, I'm going to go.
It depends on the time of the month. If it's getting closer to next payday, then it's like that number goes down a little bit. So, hey, how are we? Where are we at?
Looking at this, should I wait? Is this something I can get
right now? Is the app up to date?
Stuff like
really
that.
Have this?
It's communication, and it's not lording over the other person for what they want to get. But also having critical conversations like, hey, we need to slow down on this. Can you just wait on that? And it's not a one person's, in charge of the other person. It's more like this collaboration.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And submitting to that as well. Because sometimes it's going to be no. And so it's like, maybe we should just wait on that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What kind of advice would you give to couples that are struggling to stay united? Maybe because the friends their spouse has around them aren't positive. Like, how do you go about that situation of, hey, spouse, your friends are... Ooh.
Get rid of those friends. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think that's the priority thing, right? Like, so our most important relationship is our relationship with God, then others, then kids, then friends. And that's part of like going into marriage, like making that agreement.
Yeah.
We've never had to deal with that. So I mean, I'm not sure how I would.
I think that if your spouse is uncomfortable with your friend, there should be a conversation. Why is that? And if you're the one that has the friend, then you have to go in there with some humility and listen to see if there's any validity to what they're saying to you. And if they are, then you really do need to reevaluate that relationship, because sometimes when we're in relationships, we don't see it. And someone looking from the outside can see it a lot clearer than us. And we have to trust that our spouse is looking out for our best interest. And is that person, we need to ask that critical question, is that person helping to unite our marriage? Like, are they encouraging this marriage? Are they edifying our marriage? Or are they someone who I go and complain about my spouse to? Or are they pulling me away from the unity I find in marriage? Because if you honestly answer, yeah, they want me to go out all the time, and they say like, oh, you don't need to listen to him. Like, that is a bad relationship, and you need to be honest with yourself. Maybe they're fun. Maybe they're fun to hang out with.
Or you've just known them forever.
Or you've known them forever.
Yeah.
But if it's not helping you to build a stronger marriage, then you need to kind of transition probably out of that relationship. And I know it's hard, but
All your relationships have to transition when you get married.
That's true.
Yeah.
The relationship with your parents changes when you get married. The relationships with your friends changes when you get married. Like, all of that, none of that stays the same. And I think people want it to say, I want all these relationships the same and be married.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Like, they all have to change.
Yeah.
Because our best friend is our spouse.
Yeah.
Your best friend should be your spouse. And if that's not where you're at, then there's some work to be done to build your marriage a little bit stronger.
Yeah. Well, our last one, I think a lot of people would say this is probably causes the most arguments when it comes to a marriage, are in-laws or parents. So what kind of advice would you give if they're struggling with being a united marriage because of family members, parents?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, we've been very fortunate in this. Like,
Yeah.
my in-laws, Adrian's in-laws are just super supportive.
Yeah.
Very helpful. There have been seasons where they've lived close, lived far away. But it's also having that priority. Like, they understand the priorities that we have. Like, the relationship that I had with my parents is not the same once I got married. Like, they recognize that healthy transition. Your parents did as well too.
Yeah.
You know, they're not trying to manipulate or,
Right.
Yeah.
I think that the burden is on the person with the family to make sure that their spouse is heard when it comes to your family. So, like, say if it was my family, siblings or parents, and there was some conflict between my spouse and my family, I need to make sure that I am listening to my spouse and not citing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, here is there's always an exception, right? There's always a situation that maybe there's counseling that is required and there's something there, but you can't always go running
your
to your
spouse
mom.
is wrong.
Say your
It's like,
mom,
hey,
say your
I'm
mom,
still for
say
you, but you kind of messed up in this situation. Like,
your mom
let's
wants
get
to kind of meddle in your marriage business, and your husband's sick of it. He's like, your mom is just not, you know what? This is your marriage. This isn't you, your husband, and your mom. This is your marriage. And so your responsibility is to set those boundaries with your family to make sure that your family unit is healthy and protected, and make sure they understand that too, that there's boundaries, and you have to be a unified front. And sometimes that's uncomfortable because maybe whatever family dynamic you've been in, but it is really important that you maintain that strong family unit with your spouse and your kids.
Yeah. And and we literally went from, like, I was living at home until the day of the wedding, with my family, and then moved in together. And Adrian was living with her parents. And she had moved out for a little bit. You're back with your parents. So it wasn't like we had this big separation thing that kind of created that buffer, which a lot of people have that. But we were still able to make that transition. Like,
But
it was like overnight.
there was a good relationship with me and your family as well.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that. We understand that. That is really hard for some people, but it is worth the effort to build a relationship with your in-laws. Even if you're not best friends, build a good, healthy relationship with them of mutual respect and try to work through that and be open and honest when there's things that you have to work through as far as conflict, and come together as a couple and work through that conflict. But it's worth it to have harmony, because eventually you'll have kids, and it gets more complex as your family grows. So
Yeah. I think just the overall theming is second to God, your spouse is the most important relationship that you have, and it should be treated that way in your time, in your, words, in your everything. That prioritizing your marriage is the key to a healthy family, and healthy every relationship, honestly, in your life will overflow from this one relationship. So I just really appreciate all the wisdom that you guys have shared with us today. It's been so fun to just chat, learn about VR fishing and all that fun, exciting
we'll have to
stuff.
have Zach over. It'll be fun.
I'm very excited to go VR fishing, and I'm sure Zach will not be, but this is so great. Thank you so much for listening. We loved getting to hang out with you a little bit more. And again, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to talk about, you can email those to familylife@palmvalley.org, and we'd love to continue to hear what you guys want to hear about. But other than that, we will see you at Sunday services, and we're so excited to continue to learn with you.